Hello. Wouldn't it be cool if you could change your reality to suit whatever you feel like, whether it's being indoors or perhaps outdoors, or maybe inside a different house, or not inside a house at all? That's kind of the thing that we'll be exploring tonight when we talk Foundryside.
All right, with that, welcome to this week episode of the 800's. I am your co-host Alex, and you just heard from my lovely co-host Adam. And a quick shout out to our tech man who makes it all happen, Alan Udeman. Also, final shout out, thanks for the follow, Foregathers. Didn't quite see you in chat, but hopefully you're around next time. And with that, let's get into our plugs for the week.
Yeah, if you joined us before we got here, sorry for the late entry, by the way. Totally my fault. My computer was pooping. But if you joined us on time, you probably heard some music. That music was Fearless First from Incompetech. Incompetech has some incredibly awesome scores. You should check them out. Check them out at incompetech.filmmusic.io. Also, we have a YouTube channel where we post these videos as well as some other things. You should check that out too. The link is below the video on your screen. And also, I am a avid fan of audiobooks. I listen to all the books we do here on the show through Audible, with a few exceptions here that I've actually read instead of listened to. But Audible is super sweet and super dope. You should check it out. And if you don't believe me, you can have it for free for a month and one free book. All you have to do is go to dmstable.com/audible and sign up. And we have a Patreon website or a page. That link is also below the video. You should check that out and become a patron so you can vote on books and tell us what to do and stuff like that. It's just $2 a month to tell us what to do. So, pretty good deal. That's it. Alex, tell us what we're doing tonight.
All right, this week we will be discussing the fantasy novel Foundryside by Robert Jackson Bennett. The story takes us to a world where magic, known as scribing, can literally rewrite reality and is strictly controlled by the powerful and manipulative merchant houses. Each competes within the city of Tavan to surpass the other and control the next innovation in scribing, guarding their secrets zealously. Hired to seal one such secret is Sanchia Grotto, who has a powerful secret of her own. What does she find, and what finds her?
That was good. I like that. So if you're joining us tonight for the first time forever and plan on joining us in the future, you should probably know how we do things around here. So Alex and I chit-chat back and forth.
Sorry about that. My power went out. Like just for a second.
I was wondering, your face is kind of frozen on my screen here, so.
Hold on. Is my video not up?
I don't know. I just see your face going. Well, anyway, while Alex fixes his video, I'll explain how we work here at the 800's. So Alex and I will chit-chat back and forth about a topic either one of us come up with or we pull from chat. While we're doing that, feel free to put in a comment. We'll try and read it and comment about your guys' comments. Alex, your video is fixed. You're looking good.
Awesome. Thank you. And on that note, just a quick reminder, this is not meant to be a kid's show. We do gear it towards adults because we do adult themes, and while we try not to swear too much, it happens from time to time. So let your kids watch at your discretion. Also, we're trying to build a fun, supportive community here of people sharing their hobbies and interests, and we don't want anybody to feel like they can't just be themselves. So in short, be nice or fuck off.
With that, let's get into the conversations. Alex and chat, what were your first impressions of the book?
Honestly, first impressions, I really enjoyed the characters and the general premise of the magic system and the world that was built, and seeing it inside of this very specific city, it felt both vast and focused enough that I could get a lot of it out of this book on multiple levels. It was a little bit rough in the beginning when the info dump kind of felt a little bit much at times. Maybe it's just because I got the magic system from the beginning and I thought some of the exposition was a little bit much, but for most of the time I felt really compelled to read this book. I physically read it and listened to it on audiobook, and I did both of those things in like 3.5, 4 days. So like it was good, it was compelling, and it didn't feel too long, even though it was one of the longer books that we've done, I think at like 500 pages ish.
Yeah.
So it was challenging in some ways, but it was a good, easy, fun read, and I enjoyed it. So how about you there, Adam?
Yeah, me too. I enjoyed the beginning of this. I'm a big fan of the trope that the author used, where you have like a mini mission that isn't the main mission, but it's kind of like a setup mission. Throws you right into the thick of things, gives you a quick impression of how the world works and what the setting is. I thought that was well done. I definitely agree with V.S. Drake on the mansplained too hard aspect. We were missing the Watson character in this story, I think, to bounce new explanations off of. But I really enjoyed the story. I thought the magic system was kind of a cool system and was thought out pretty well. Yeah.
We were the Watson. In fact, I would disagree in saying that there was kind of a Watson character in Sanchia, but it didn't happen until we meet the key to everything.
Yeah.
That being Clef. So that first third of the book, I would agree with V.S. Drake. It's not, I didn't find it boring per se, but it was a little overladen for my tastes, again, because everything is just kind of, I don't know, I guess it is mansplained because most of it's through Orso, or it is a patriarchal society where people specifically limit women's involvement in the magic system. So all you have is men explaining it. Who's the other guy? The one, the tinkerer who got kicked out of one of the merchant houses. He's one of the two people that Sanchia trusts. There's so many Gregor, that's the one. Thank you, VS Drake. I did have trouble keeping track of all the names in this because Gregor I thought was Gregor is the character who was the warrior character, like the White Knight character, wasn't he? Yeah, okay. Gregor was the White Knight character. Yeah, but that's the problem, is Google doesn't have squat on this book because it's so new. But before we go too deep into that, I can't think of the scrapper's name either, because there's two of them that came as a pair, one man, one woman.
Are you talking about the two people who run like the secret society of scrivers, or are you talking about her fence?
No, the two people who run the secret scribers. I think V.S. Drake called them scrappers, and I think that's what they were. Her fence, I don't remember that dude's name, but he died so early on. Claudia and someone else. But the scriber dude dies so early on. I don't remember his name. I just know that the dude had a lot of hidey holes that got found pretty quickly.
Yeah. You're right. Google doesn't have a lot on this.
Yeah, this book is. I was surprised at how sparse it was when I was looking. I was specifically hoping to have like a name list for this chat. So I apologize to anybody listening to this now or in the future, where this one's going to be a little rough on the names because I'm used to being able to look up a name list when I do this. I thought I would remember better because I actually physically read this book, but what I need to do is I need to audiobook, listen to it first, and then read it physically, and I might actually remember the names better. Anyway,
So
one of the things I did like though is the character is the fact that there
Giovanni is his name.
Giovanni. Yeah, that's why Gregor sounded right. There was the G in there.
I'm gonna send you a character list.
Oh, thank you very much there, Adam. Look, he's got us covered, folks. So anybody else who would have been left in the dark with me.
I'm just gonna pop it in chat.
Yeah, just let's get that.
Oh, it's too long.
One of the things I did like is that even though there were a lot of names in this book, it didn't feel like, as I was reading it, it didn't feel overwhelming, like the number of characters. And that's one of the things I was most impressed with this book was the depth of characters. So I know we're doing this a little earlier on than we usually do, but who was your favorite character and why?
I liked Gregor. Is your text document working today?
Yes, it is. I'm about to post it right now.
Okay. Was it Gregor? Yeah. Gregor, I think I really liked because he was multifaceted. He was the cop. He was a white knight. He was law within chaos. And he was a victim. Which I really liked it when at the end it turned out he was being harassed by his mother.
Well, yeah, and you point out a perfect point for this book is like the levels that each of, like, especially the main characters had, and Gregor is a perfect example of it. For the second book in a row, my favorite character was an inanimate object. I like, technically speaking, we can argue about the semantics of it later, I mean, but like Clef was my favorite. Funny, tortured past, figuring out who and what he was interesting. Although I will admit, I did get it like pretty much from the get-go, but I underestimated exactly. I didn't get one aspect of it, but I got what he was, like how he knew he was a he, but I didn't predict exactly how big of a deal he was going to be within the mythology of this world. We can get to that when we start talking more plot points. But Clef, I really liked exploring the more in-depth parts of the magic system through how Clef interacted with everything in the world, and how he thought everybody was like, he was one of those characters who just knows something about the world that nobody else does. And he's just like, well, yeah, you can do it that way, but that doesn't make any sense. Here, you can just do this, but you can't do that. Yes, you can. Here, watch.
Yeah. You know, the thing, what was I going to say? Dang it. I hate when my brain does that. The thing about Cleft that I thought I had it. Nope. Go ahead. No, you first. No.
I was gonna just take it to the chat since you didn't have your bit. Yes, Drake. I agree with you. Like, I think I love that Sanchia is a strong LGBTQ character, and she wasn't a token one. And along with that, her love interest why am I blanking on her name? I know it starts with a B, and I'm trying to look at her little.
Oh, Berenice.
Berenice, yeah. like all of the characters, none of them felt token, and they all had strengths and weaknesses. And Sancho was probably my second favorite, and then Berenice, and then Gregor. Gregor's kind of character I think I'd seen before, minus some, like, I think they did a better job. I think Bennett did a better job of going over his trauma than some, and exploring like what that actually meant to experience, than some authors do with that kind of, tortured past white knight character. But it's something I'd seen before, and the rest felt a little newer and fresher than I'd seen in a little while. You know, so I guess that's why he kind of fell down those rankings for me. But like, again, all great characters, all of them to me.
Yeah. So the thing I was disappointed in about Clef was it seemed like the author wanted Clef's reveal to be like a shock, but it seemed blatantly obvious at the beginning of Clef's story that he was a human turned into a key.
Yeah, and that's the bit that I did guess, and I think that's the part where this book falls the shortest of being like a complete masterpiece for me, is the fact that there's just parts of it that, like, it's supposed to be, aha, awesome, that's so cool, and you're just like, no, that was pretty predictable. But the thing is like, the parts that I enjoyed most that were unpredictable were the parts where the author was just writing to tell the story. Everything, those aha moments felt forced, but the actual aha moments were the ones where it didn't feel forced, which was weird. Yeah, like Clef being the wand, that little bit. I mean, you can kind of get it a little bit beforehand if you look at the context clues, like considering like what he can do. But, the little language thing is not something you can necessarily know. And that's an actual aha moment that makes sense where it was. As opposed to him being a human, you're just like, well, that kind of makes sense. You've been implying that humans are involved, the gathering of the minds, a transfer happens, and then like you've been setting that up for 5 chapters now, and then you're just like, oh, but curtain reveal, when the curtain reveal happened 3 chapters before then.
I mean, like, one of the first things Clef says was that he knows what wine tastes like. Why does he know what wine tastes like? Like, oh shit, maybe because you were human before.
Yeah, it's really not that hard to make that leap. And I think there's some things that the author was just like, yeah, people won't get this, but I don't think he was giving his readers quite enough credit for that. And it's not like this was I could see that. I'd be more willing to accept that in like a YA type of novel, where you're potentially casting into, early young teens, maybe, but for an adult novel, it's unnecessary.
Yeah. I will say Bennett's writing style struck me as somebody who definitely had schooling on writing. It comes across as well written, and he has creative ideas and an excellent storyline to run. But it felt like certain things fell flat that a more experienced author wouldn't have fallen flat on.
I would agree, and I really hope as the series goes forward, I know there's another book that just got released last year that I'm absolutely going to be reading like as soon as this live stream is over. But which is telling of a book, because when I feel this compelled to read the next book because of how good the first one is, that's a mark of like a truly exciting book to read. But I definitely agree with you, Adam, that there are parts that fell flat, and I think it might just be, Bennett's not a new writer, but I think he's still finding his footing a little bit, and there's the potential for the next book, if done right, to make up for those things and be as good, if not better, which is so difficult for a sequel.
Yeah, I feel like he just needs to find his groove and run with it, and I don't know. It felt like some parts were inorganic, like he wanted them to be in there, but they didn't really fit in there.
Yeah, just like V.S. Drake says, want to see how he does without that lore dump in the very beginning. And, now that the world is set, you can just explore the intricacies through story building and character building. But I do want to get to V.S. Drake's question, and I'm going to pop it in chat now. Do you think that Bennett did a good job in action sequences, and what was your favorite action sequence?
Yeah, I agree. Let's talk about that. I thought he did well. There's obviously some difficulties with these kind of sequences because a lot of them happen in Sanchia's mind, so timing kind of becomes strained.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, though, that they were good. They definitely grabbed your attention and kept it. Personally, my favorite action sequence was the wagon sequence when Sanchia was tied up by Gregor and they were being chased. I really liked that because it showed their different personalities really well, and it was kind of a cool fight scene with the whole wagon chase and getting creative in a scenario where they're in over their heads pretty well. So yeah, that was my favorite.
I'm with V.S. Drake. That one was a close second for me for the exact reasons that you mentioned, but I tended to lean more towards the mountain fight. I thought the fights, I think he did an overall above average job with the action sequences because they were compelling. You learned stuff as you went, either about the characters or about the world they were in, which is a hard feat to do because sometimes you just get so into there are some action sequences that you get into in other books where it's just like action, 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 and it's just like, yeah, that would be good for like a screenplay or something like that, or setting up a movie, but it doesn't really further anything in the book. And I always love when authors can manage to get action while learning something about the characters or about the world that they're in. And the wagon sequence does that, but I think the mountain sequence does it even better. And I especially love that we get to see really what parts all of the characters can play in that sort of sequence. And one of the nice things is that they suffer a minor defeat, and without it seeing, it was realistic in the way that it ended, the way that like the characters at a certain point had to cut and run. Like that's just what they had to do. So many of these fights seem like the author just has to have them win or has to have them lose. And this one legitimately, yes, I am talking about the loss of Gregor. This one legitimately felt like it could go either way, and they gave them a moment to make a decision, which was when Gregor lost and they, basically had lost their foothold, their momentum, and rather than forcing it through like the powerful heroes that they are, they did what normal fucking humans do and rethink shit, and eventually they found a way that they're like, we've got to go. And I really appreciated that moment where they actually rethought the situation after a trauma. And I was just like, thank God, because if they tried to push on and he came up with some bullshit excuse for why they like suddenly found the power within or whatever, because it was the friends we made along the way.
Going off of that same theme, the part where Sanchia
sorry, laughing at B.S. Drake's D&D players comment.
the part where they're laying out the plan to Sanchia for the attack on the mountain, and she's like, no, fuck you, I'm leaving. What the fuck are you doing?
Right?
God damn. What the hell? Trying to kill me? That was good. I will say before we move on too far, so the reason why the mountain scene wasn't my favorite fight was because I felt like the black hole thing that V.S. Drake mentioned was not in line with how that device worked. That device specifically altered the gravity of its user. Unless that Sanxia set it a certain way, and then all of a sudden it affects the gravity of everything around it.
That one, I guess, maybe I was caught up in the action and I didn't overthink that one specific bit, but it changed the gravity of all around it, not the user. It was a bubble, so yeah.
So the black hole moment changed the gravity of everything around it. When every other use of that device is going on, it only changes the gravity of the user.
I thought it was. I'm not sure if it was or not. I must have missed paying attention to that one specific bit because I was more focused on the characters at that point because I felt like I had more or less figured out how that, it's just reality shifting and they convinced it to do something a little bit beyond its capacity, and that's just how my brain filled in the gap. But I can see how that might take away from it if that's what you wound up focusing on. And I think there are moments in this book where it is very easy to do that, and I think it varies from person to person which one grabs your attention. I remember there being one that I wanted to talk about, and I forget what it is now, but eventually it'll pop into my head.
Well, let's go there. What was your favorite reality-altering device?
Can we say excluding Clef and
excluding Clef?
And well, I mean, can we also exclude what's her name, check the one that is essentially the reality changer?
Oh,
the AI. What?
The lady.
Yeah, whatever her name is.
The secret god.
Yeah, we'll figure out the name eventually. So other than those two, let's limit it to specifically the tools that were created in this era, then, shall we?
Yeah.
Let's see. There's so many good ones though. I did like the armor suit, not for the suit of armor itself, but I liked the aspect of light absorption specifically, like the idea of taking something that isn't necessarily practical in and of itself and finding applications for it, showing that this stuff is going beyond the obvious, like the wheels, we need things to go places, yay, or the way that they make water move, or that they use to just do basic locking and unlocking of stuff. So I think it's tied with that specific technology because of the implication of what they're designing. And on a similar note, the mountain itself is probably my next favorite because it was that first moment where I think I was thinking, oh shit, this really is like AI, because it was the first thing that made me think, oh, maybe there is something that isn't just putting a human into something, because it didn't quite have that human capacity to actually have a real personality, but it was learning. And I was like, okay, so there is an in between, and I thought that was really interesting. And again, it went beyond the basics into something more intricate. So yeah, the mountain and the specifically light absorption technology were my two favorites because of what they implied for where this magical technology was advancing, which, by the way, to that note, this is my favorite magic technology integration that I've read so far on this show. Like, that system is my favorite so far.
I agree. It's got a good system to it, but mine was very simple. I really liked the little flying thing they rigged up. That was absolutely the simplest thing ever. Make this thing attracted to that thing. Get up really high and turn it on.
Well, and that's, I think, one of the beauties of this system is that for most of your everyday things, it is beautifully simple, but it is wonderfully intricate if you're willing to look into it. And I think that's the hallmark of a true, like, hard magic system that works and is compelling, is that, yeah, there are parts that you can really delve into, but it doesn't necessarily take a lot to really understand the basics of it. And I think that is the one thing, again, I don't want to harp on this too much, but I think it's the one thing that Bennett kind of, you know, played out a little too much, as he thought it was a little more difficult to grasp, and it wasn't. And I think he should have, I'm not sure if that wasn't, it was a lack of confidence in his own magic system, or if it was a lack of confidence in the readers, but either way, it made it kind of annoying, because you're like, no, you created a good magic system. It's simple. I understand it. And you can make it more intricate just through telling the story. Like, there are several, like, you could probably drop like maybe 20 to 50 pages of stuff, of exposition that you didn't need. I mean, it's cool to learn, but there was just over explanation of stuff. Valeria, thank you, V.S. Drake. That's the name of the AI. We will get to her in a little bit. So V.S. Drake, though, mentioned that their favorites were the lexicons, which I think is so cool, because, like, that's basically a coding language. Yeah. Like, it was really cool to see that. That's really all that was. And then and then whip.
V.S. Drake, your question, do you think Valeria was the advanced version of the mountain? I would say yes and no. The mountain didn't really have its own agenda, so to speak. It existed, well, I mean, Valeria really didn't either, but more on that in a second. The mountain existed to enforce rules given to it for the area known as the mountain, where Valeria was created to essentially, in an unknown way, fix the world up to Valeria's own reckoning.
I would liken it to, like, the difference between Jarvis and Ultron.
Yeah.
With Mountain being Jarvis and Valeria being Ultron, where she took an objective and was like, all right, you gave me an objective, I'm just going to make it happen. You might not like how it's going to happen, but I'm going to make it happen. And Jarvis was the dutiful, you gave me a duty and I'm going to do it. And like this is what my master told me. I mean, pre-Mind Stone, mind you, because, you know, then we get into Vision and all that, but
LOL duty.
Shout out to those who fellow Gur lovers from Invader Zim.
Oh, I'm making pancakes.
Man, that's what we need to do. We need to live stream that show and just, like, do reactions to that. I haven't seen that show in like 10 years, even though I've watched it like 10 times too. Anyway, back to our book, which is what we actually do here.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Sure, that's what we do. Yeah. Yeah, I'm really glad that you asked that one, VS Drake, because I was actually fascinated between at the, like, differences and, like, the advancements of, like, the implication of how even magical technology can gain a will of its own, you know, because usually magic is implied to already have a will of its own, you know, in most books. And it was really interesting to see how this was like kind of again, it was kind of a coding language that could eventually gain its own will, much like AI did. So it definitely had a very, you know, I'm going to borrow from some of the reviews that I read after I read this book, is definitely a very cyberpunk feel in a fantasy world. And it was kind of a cool, unique combination for me. Yeah, and that it's language based very literally, which is pretty cool. Yeah. I still am not 100% sure how, like, I want to learn more about like why, like what's the ones and zeros behind the letters, you know?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the Hierophants.
Alrighty.
Via Strake says, "Can we talk about Hierophants? Did you see it coming? Them being a collective."
I kind of did, because I don't know if anybody else out there watched Stargate, but I got very much like Ancients / Ori vibes from them, where they reached a certain pinnacle of advancement and then they had to take that next step. And part of that was reaching a higher level of consciousness. And you either do that through individual or potentially like pooling into one consciousness. And so I kind of did. I didn't necessarily know that it would happen in the way that it did until they revealed that little, you know, painting or carving or whatever the hell it was of the ritual, where it said the combining of minds. But I kind of did. And again, I felt like I got like an Ancients vibe from them. So it's an advanced society that is essentially the same genetic makeup, just on another level. And their society ended with a combination of transcendence and ruin, which is almost exactly what happened.
Yeah, I didn't see it coming. I think Clef was supposed to be a key. That was the case because he was a mind, right? Mm-hmm. I think the fact that Sanchia could talk to everything and everything kind of had a voice was supposed to lead us to believe that maybe Hierophants were just made up of multiple layers of consciousnesses. That was a weird thing to say, consciousnesses. Conscii? What's
I really don't know for that one. I would need to know is it Greek in origin, because then you add the I, but conscious.
But yeah, I would be more curious to delve more into what exactly you get out of the sucking souls into you thing. Like, I feel like that was more of just a slap it on there kind of reveal. Like, by the way, they're made up of a ton of people, and that's how they work.
Well, I didn't think it was quite so haphazard as that, or like last minute. I just think it was meant to be saved to the end, because that's probably a little bit, I would have to guess there's a fair amount of going into that in the next book. I don't want to get too much into it because we're going to do predictions later. But you know, I didn't find it so haphazard, but I was also making assumptions about the next book. The final form fight. Okay, so now we're getting into DBZ. Like, I'm wondering what the influences were for Bennett on this, because there's so many things you can tie in, both fantasy and sci-fi. Was there a DBZ? Who's Goku?
Stop it. Okay, let's talk about Sanchia's what do you call transformation at the hands of what was it, Valeria? Valeria. Her transformation from being able to touch inanimate objects and hear their thoughts into being able to act more like Clef and communicate with scribed objects.
Honestly, I think my favorite part of that is that Valerio's like, oh, your code is buggy and it's always on. You don't have a way to turn it off. So it's like, I thought that was a really cool fix that made so much sense. It didn't feel like an overpowered boost to be able to say, oh, let's make your code work a little better and make it more efficient by allowing you to choose when to turn it on and off.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, it was definitely programming based, and I honestly enjoyed that it was a legitimate boost in power that was based off of something, was object empathy, I think was what she gave the term for like her power beforehand.
Yeah.
It took object empathy, it took out one of the main weaknesses of it in a realistic way given the magic system. Is it a little OP? Yeah, but so are like the next level of people that she was dealing with. I really thought it was kind of cool that they showed that the difference between a noob trying to do it versus like Clef, who'd been doing it since time immemorial, and
Yeah.
her who's like new at it, and she's like, oh, they're minds. Oh, they're dumb minds. Like, makes me wonder what it'd be like if we could just like directly like with words communicate with computers, like if like we could communicate with the ones and zeros with our own, you know, and like would their minds be the same? Select input.
I kind of took that as like when she's communicating with him, she's searching through the code looking for the line that says, you know, if key then open, and then she's going in there. If key or Sanchia then open, you know.
Yeah, and it felt like there was like, it was one of those types of things like when you know you could go into Google and you can like make edits to some of their code, but there's some parts where it'll only do suggestions. It won't actually change the code, but then, you know, it kind of felt like that, only she was given access to actually change certain bits of it while some was still restricted. Like, you can change this much, but not that. Like, you don't have full access. Like, you don't have clearance to change this bit, but if you change this bit, it's still within the rules.
Yeah. Yeah, via Drake. I really liked the grav plates thing because it kind of showed the importance of the scribers, right? Because Sanchia had no idea what was important. You know, she had no idea what the heck they were talking about. But when she voiced what they were saying, Berenice was like, yeah, I totally know exactly what that's talking about. Like, just give me a minute. Well, it was a really nice balancing out of powers, I think.
Yes, it was. And one of the things I love though that it really set up is the power duo between those two, you know? Like, it really showed what they can do together, where their strengths and weaknesses were, and that there was somebody who could fill in the gaps and actually where those gaps were after the major power up for Sanchia.
Yeah. I think the password that Vias Drake and Paradoxator Alex is talking about here. So I thought that was really cool because as readers, we're like, obviously it's fucking password, dude. What are you talking about? But they don't have computers in that world. They don't have like Sanchia's never needed a password before. like it felt cool that she struggled to figure out that she needed to say a word, because obviously for her that's not something she needs to do in any aspect of her life, where you and I, the readers, are like, well, duh, it's password. Like, you need passwords to break into things. Like, obviously, that's how things work. Duh. So I thought that was really well done. I thought it made sense.
So did I, and I actually really like the way that she ended up breaking it. I'm still a little confused on like how mentally you could ask hundreds of questions at once, and maybe that comes with the power of itself being able to do that. But I thought it was really cool that she was like, "Oh, I can technically ask multiple questions at once, and I can just basically brute force this passcode." you know.
I I took that as like you can think of things without forming it into words. Like you have an idea and it takes you a millisecond to have that idea. It
Okay.
takes you longer to phrase it into words, but as soon as you have that idea, if you're Sanchia, you could push that idea out to the device.
Yeah, and that's an interesting distinction to make, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Thanks for bringing that one. Yeah, multi-threading. That might be a good way of putting it. But yeah, let's get to VS Drake's question about Orso. What were your thoughts on him, Adam?
Orso was the yeah. Um, I felt like the narrator had him a little wrong in the audiobook. I think they portrayed him a little too strongly. Like his personality, I think, was a little too strong. How the narrator did it, so that kind of took me a while to reconcile. But I really liked him. I think his personality screamed entitled master scriber. Like he very much had I'm a god kind of attitude about him. Like I'm justly so, because what he did was godlike powers. He affected reality. His job was to change reality, and
Mm-hmm.
he was one of the best at it. So like justly so, obviously he had a little bit of a god complex about him. um, but I liked that.
Sorry, reading VS Drake's comment.
No,
None of
no,
the
VS
don't.
Drake,
This is none of
that
this
comment
personal.
alone, that comment alone makes you look, because you're saying you're Orso. um, just kidding. Anyway, um, nice emoji there.
Yeah,
No, but
the name of that emoji is Max LOL.
the the one thing I liked about Orso specifically was his uh reality shake when he had to leave the campo and go into the I don't know I forget what they call it, the outlands.
Mhm.
And he's like, fuck, like, I can't take care of myself because I don't know what the real world's like. uh, so that I thought that was really well written.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. Because again, it takes a character that in his element is effectively like more or less, flawless at what he does, but it shows another chip in the armor of who he is. Like we also know that he's highly arrogant, but it's earned arrogance in a lot of ways because, he was one of the best at what he did in a world where he was literally reshaping reality. I didn't think the narrator did too terrible of a job because when I physically read the book, I kind of got slightly arrogant, crotchety, old, obsessive scientist that is not quite mad scientist yet, but is like one strong kick in the rear away from it. Um, but he softens up throughout the book, and I think part of it comes to that realization moment that you mentioned, Adam, where he's like, "Oh shit, this is bigger than just me and my lab."
Mm-hmm.
Like I get it has world implications, but like he actually puts a like a human cost to it and actually gives a shit about it. It's not just about the science anymore. And I thought that was really interesting character growth, but still retaining the arrogance, just in a different way. And especially with the way that he got out of going to you know well, being executed, really. It was like the ultimate like planner and machinist, whether and strategist.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like
creating the
I
new
like
company.
I like the he got out of his execution by creating the company. I never mind. I'll leave that for predictions. But
Loophole.
I'm really surprised nobody just killed him outright, like in the alleyway, leaving the trial.
Yeah, I kind of was thinking that was gonna happen, but like I I thought it only for a moment, because I was like, oh, there's another book and it can easily happen in the next one and be like a catalyst for an adventure, is figuring out who killed Orso, like, and leading to something bigger type of deal. You know, like if it, you think it's one of the merchant houses, but actually it's something else and something new type of thing. There's a lot more that can be done if he stays alive, and it would be smarter to keep him alive, I think. At the very, even if nothing does happen to him, there's, even though I thought it for a brief moment, I'm glad that he didn't get killed off.
He's definitely a key player in the team, right? He's got the ideas. He knows how to make things a reality.
I think you mentioned this last time. One of your favorite things about creating a great fictional world is being able to come up with appropriate native swears, and
Yeah.
I would definitely have to
test,
agree with yes, Drake.
The true test of great literature is being able to break out of your own vocal trends in heated moments. I
And you
think
can't.
I think Bennett could get there, but I don't think he's there yet.
No, I mean, scrumming is like one of those things, like it feels more like a crap and less of a fuck,
Yeah.
And it also was a little bit weird that like it had that, but also had our same swear words. Like it had to go out of its way to make the one swear word different, which was a little bit strange. Yeah, which made no sense. Yeah, and I agree, VS Drake. There's nothing really tying this world to ours. I know it's for translation purposes, but if you're going to change one, change them all, type of thing. It makes more sense to me. I mean, I'd be more likely to keep fuck than make that the one that has to go. I don't know
Yeah.
if that was an editor choice thing or not, but whatever the case may be, I would prefer all or nothing on that one. Just like be completely creative with it, or just stick to the classics. you know?
Yeah. All right, let's get into predictions. What are your predictions for the future of these storylines?
Oh man. So obviously I think there's going to be a lot of the other merchant guilds trying to surreptitiously destroy Foundryside, and then probably coming up with ways to repel it initially, and they're probably going to grow. I'm not sure if this will all be in like hand waved and like 2 years later, and all that stuff's already happened. But I do think really one of two things is going to be the primary movement, either, and possibly both. Somebody actually dies, and if anybody was going to die, I bet it's going to be Orso or Giovanni. Those would be my guess for the one of the two who dies. And the other major thing, I think Clef is going to be reincarnated or found again at some point, but not necessarily as Clef. What was the name of that guy? His actual name, Seditious or Cadicius or something like that.
I don't remember.
Yeah, so I see Clef getting resurrected in one form or another. I don't know what that form will be. And my other prediction is that when Clef is brought back, it's going to release like a greater evil type of thing.
Yeah.
Or a greater chaos or greater evil, one of the other things. But like I think that's going to have unintended consequences.
Yeah, I agree there. That's something that was kind of mentioned in the book that Sanchia wants to kind of find Clef again. So it feels like it needs to happen to have some sort of closure.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we're going to see a lot more scribed humans in the future. Because, I mean, Sanchia at the end of the book, even though she was brand new to her power, was nearing godlikehood. I mean, she opened up an entire I forget the word, the little company grounds thing. Do you know what I'm talking about? The campo. She opened up an entire campo practically on her own with the aid of one little device, and successfully took it down almost single-handedly. Like, she seems too powerful. Like, if she goes unanswered, then the book's just going to be boring as fudge. So I think we're going to see a lot more scribe humans and a lot more interesting powers in the future.
I think you're probably pretty right there. Especially, and not just because of that, but because like we've already seen Gregor is one of the scribed humans that like came out of that. And if basically all of them stopped because they found something, what was the one something that each of the houses found? Because I don't imagine they were all the same.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because Gregor's is very different from Sanchez. So what is the next power that they're going to find in these scribed humans? What's the flaw going to be in like a missile crisis situation? Sorry, large scale war. I think that's possible. My guess for a prediction on the large scale war, yeah, book 3, exactly, V.S. Drake. I think that's like going to end in a it's going to end in like it's either going to actually be the war or we need to stop the specific thing to stop that large scale war, and that's going to be whatever book 3 is, would be my guess. Another prediction from V.S. Drake. He thinks Bernice is going to get iceboxed.
Yeah. She's gonna get killed. She gonna be deaded.
I could see it happening so easily. I really hope she doesn't, because then she becomes another in a list of characters that was killed to propel the protagonist. And that another love interest. And I get that's a powerful prose. Pardon me. And it's a powerful motivation. But I'd rather see them take it in another direction if they're going to make somebody die. But pardon me, jeez.
V.S. Drake, who is Chrysides? The Hierophant created class.
That's the Hierophant. Chrysides. I knew it sounded very Greek,
I agree, V.S. Drake. I think he's going to be the big bad. Based on the reveal about the fact that Hierophants have to kill lots of people to become Hierophants, I think they're all very, very bad people.
Well,
um,
and he's the one who created Valeria, or one of the ones who created Valeria. So ostensibly, he's not just one of them, but he was a leader of them, which makes him more of an active and less of a passive participant.
yeah. I think you're right. I think he's locked away somewhere in something. Maybe something like how Clef was locked in the key. Maybe Chresides, or however you say his name, is in a similar sort of scenario where he's inside some sort of device and he's eventually going to break free.
How fucked would that be if Chresides like needed another vessel and it ends up being Berenice?
I don't know. I think Berenice needs to get fleshed out more to become a permanent character. Like we got a lot on her in this book, but she just doesn't feel like, I just don't care about her as a character.
Well, maybe that's me projecting, because like that's what I want for her. I want book 2 to have that for her, is have her go from being a side character who is gaining momentum within the story to being a fully fleshed character, because I think there's so much potential there for her. And how devastating would that be if like the end of the book is Chresides, possessing her, and he's about to start a world war in her body. The choice that the party would have to make, with her is like, do we kill or not, and how do we save her? It's a bit of a played out trope to have it be the love interest of the protagonist, but maybe that's a way for us to explore her in, like, I don't know how that process works. Like, does her mind exist, or is it completely swallowed whole? And does she, in her being as smart as she is, it'd be really cool to see, can her mind fight back against that sort of thing, if that's even possible with this ritual. There's so much potential there for her to do that, that I would be okay with that being her fate. I just don't want her to be like the sacrificial lamb, like right off the bat, just for the sake of compelling the hero to move.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want her to be cannon fodder, I guess. I want her to get some sort of exposition. Like, so if she's going to be that motivation that is potentially tragic, give her a moment to shine, flesh her out a little bit, because I'm going to be disappointed if they don't. But that's because I like the potential she has. That's on me.
All right, you got any more topics you want to talk about? Chat, you got anything? Let's
see. I didn't have anything specific, because if we just like randomly ramble, we'll be here till 12 o'clock at night. But we do need to kind of start wrapping up. So if nobody has any final stuff here, why don't we get into our final thoughts then?
Yeah. What were your final thoughts?
Overall, I would absolutely recommend this book to people who like sci-fi, fantasy. In fact, I know I mentioned this about other books, but if I wanted somebody who was a purely fantasy or purely sci-fi, and I was trying to show them the best of both worlds, this is the exact kind of book I would show them. Yeah, I would definitely agree with VS Drake. I'd tell people to stick with it. It's worth it, but it can be a little bit rough in the beginning, but he finds his footing. And like, I think there's a lot of wonderful characters, and different people can identify with different ones. Like, all three of us had different favorites. VS Drake being the only one in the chat who threw anything out there, and then us two having different, and we all had great reasons, and we still all love the characters. So there's a lot that anybody could find in this. There, again, if somebody's looking to branch out, this is a good in-between book between sci-fi and fantasy. And quite honestly, I think anybody who likes action in their stories would probably enjoy this too, because while it wasn't great per se, it is compelling enough to keep you moving. So overall, I would say really good book with so much potential if the author learns from the mistakes of this one for a sequel to be even better. I'm definitely going to be reading the second one immediately, and I really hope this guy, Bennett lives up to his writing, learns, and makes book number 2 as good or better.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I really liked this book. It I hate to do this to any author, but it was no Sanderson book, but it was pretty good. I definitely think Bennett shines as an author who knows what he's doing. I think he has areas to grow, but as do we all. I really liked the story that he wanted to tell. I really think he fleshed out the world pretty well. He came up with a really cool system and kept it pretty robust. His characters were definitely three-dimensional. A lot of them I ended up thinking were great characters. Yeah, I could go on and on about different things I liked about what he did. Just my biggest gripe was the timing seemed off, and it felt a little too forced in certain spots. But I mean, like I said, he's no Sanderson, so. But he's also. Nah, I don't want to do that. I was gonna think of like a bad author to compare him to, but I don't want to do that. So,
well, I mean, he's still a good author, but there's definitely room to grow. And like, again, we keep comparing him to Sanderson, but who is? You know, like there's so few, and he has, again, he's relatively new. This book, I know he's written before, but this book is what, 3 years old now, and I'm sure if you went through like the very first books that Sanderson wrote, they probably weren't as good, and maybe he didn't get published those, but like, this, I think that like this is definitely an above average author with the potential to be great, and a story that has the potential to be great. Whether or not he lives up to it, we'll see.
Yeah. I would definitely put this in the suggest column. I thought it was good.
We finally got you there. It's been a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Well,
right.
when we review so many great novels, I kind of got to move the bar up a bit. So.
Well, like, yeah, this is one of those that I would suggest to most people, not necessarily select people. And it's been a little while since I've had one of those. Probably Artemis Fowl is one of the ones that I would suggest to most people who just want an easy, fun read. And this is like pretty much anybody who's willing to read sci-fi and fantasy, I would direct towards this book. Like, not just like avid readers, but willing to read that, I would suggest it.
Yeah.
Yeah, book 2 will definitely tell. So why don't we go ahead and wrap up for the day there, Adam?
All right. How do we do that? I have no idea.
Oh yeah, we should probably get into our future book plans. So let's see.
There's time for that. Let me do the plugs and stuff.
Oh, you want to do plugs first? I have the book plans. Where you want to go? Fine. Not themes, but like the actual, like our next book.
The book we're reading. All right. Yeah. Go ahead.
All right, so our next book is going to be The Alchemist by Paulo Quaylo, and our second book, our on deck after that is going to be, oh, bummer. I had the list up and it is gone. Oh no!
Gods of Jade and Shadow by Sylvia Moreno Garcia.
All right, yeah. So that is our next book. And then we will have our vote ready for you for the next set soon. We don't have our 3 books picked out yet, but we will post that after we are done with this episode.
Yeah. So you guys have a bit of time for the next one. The Alchemist by Paulo Quaylo is by September 11th. So almost a month. Take a break from reading. Read it up. It's not a terribly long book. Shouldn't take too long.
Get to some of those sequels of the ones that we started.
Yeah. Then I'd say probably after that we'll probably start hitting the every other week a little more consistently. Summer's coming to a close soon here.
Mm-hmm.
So cool events that we partake in on the weekly basis will kind of come to a head. So should be able to make more consistency with these. A second book.
Second of a series.
If we wanted to do a second book of the series, yeah, we could definitely do that via Strike. I think that's a good suggestion. Kind of a round 2 of some of these. That would be a fun thing to do.
It would be really nice to. I think one thing that would be nice to do is make that the book for our 1-year anniversary coming up in November. Yeah, but we can do it sooner too.
We could do a Brando Sando book too.
Technically, we could. That we do have one that would fit that bill. Yeah, so if you have any other suggestions like that, feel free to toss that our way. Even if you don't have a book, if you have a theme you want to see or anything, you can toss it out too. But for now, let's get into our plugs. And
if you guys haven't figured out by now, Brando Sando is probably my favorite author. So talk about him a lot.
Yeah, don't suck his dick too hard at him.
Fine. Brando Sando, if you're watching, I'm so terribly sorry for Alex and his lewd comments. Please,
I'm not apologizing for it.
Please email me back. Check your inbox. It's there.
Jesus, calm down, Adam.
Plugs. Our main website is dmstable.com. Check out YouTube. The link is below the video. We post tons of stuff there. Join us on Patreon to give us money so we can have money and things. Believe it or not, it's not free for the things we do. Patreon.com/dmstable is the link for that. It's also below the video. Yay! We have some social medias, some socials that we do. It's mostly Facebook and Twitter. We totes post on there on the regular. Facebook is at the DMs table and Twitter is at DMs table. Those links are also below the video. You should check them out. That's where you're going to get most of the reminders for what books we're doing and stuff. So if you want a reminder to read books, follow us on Facebook or Twitter. And we have a cool little Discord. It's a nice little place. We chat about things, have good convos. We post memes. Alex wouldn't know anything about that, would he, Alex?
Not at all. I totally don't spam the general chat.
Hit us up on our socials and we'll get you the link for the Discord. It's a cool place to be. Alex, talk future plans. Why don't you?
All right, and one thing I actually get quite a few questions on is some people want to know, they want like the comprehensive list of what we've done, what's coming up next, and where our votes and stuff are. And while you can find that on Twitter, if you want something that's organized and has all of it, definitely check out DM's Table. I think that is the most all-in-one if you ever want to check that stuff out. Anyways, going forward, as we said, we've got our 2 books for our Latin Authors Month, and we will be finishing that up through September, and then we'll be into October, which I believe we are going to be focusing on horror and thriller books. So get us your favorite horror and thriller books for the month of October. If there's anything you want out there, I know a lot of people are probably going to be tempted to go Stephen King. Please be mindful of the page count because he can get a little long. We'll do our best to get to it, but we need reasonable lengths to get there. So anybody, yeah, I lobbed the softball out there, and as expected, V.S. Drake has hit it out of the park. That's what she said. So those are our next couple coming up, and then after that we're into November, which is coming up on our 1-year anniversary. Unfortunately, the closest day to our 1-year anniversary, I will probably be out of town. So, barring new COVID restrictions, but if everything goes to plan, I will be out of town, and you'll be chatting for the first time, the duo, Adam and Alan. So potentially look forward to that. Otherwise, Alan can stay behind the screen. Nobody wants to see his face.
Marsh, he can hear you.
Sorry about that, buddy. So, throw out your suggestions, and we look forward to hearing from them. Is there anything else that you have, Adam?
No, I think that about does it. I think we're good to finish up.
All right. Well,
don't forget to give us some book suggestions.
Do it. I dare you. We'll see you next book.
Thanks for joining us tonight, guys.
See you next book, guys.